Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Fundamentals and Practical Leadership for New and Emerging Leaders. This is our last session, Strategic Thinking Applied to Day-to-Day Work. Some great quotes to start. Most of us in the nonprofit world don't often have to decide between good and bad. Most of our decisions are between good and best, and that is where strategy comes in. Second quote, how does my small work connect up to the big work, the big picture, the big why? Making that connection can be so helpful. So how does the smaller work of your team or department connect to the bigger work of the organization? And that is what we're going to focus on today. This session explores what you can do as a leader to ensure that you integrate your organization's strategic directions into your daily work and support others to do the same. What are simple ways to ensure that you and your team are aligned to strategy? How do you nurture strategic mindset as a leader? And so it's interesting that we didn't actually start the series with strategy, but we're ending with it. And we were pretty intentional about that because we believe that there's a lot of things that you've gone through in the series that we've done together that helps to inform strategic thinking. So if you think about our series, we started with your reason to lead, what changes for you as you become a leader or a manager, how do you influence with formal and informal leadership, the communication basics around clarity, conciseness, and civility. We then talked about conflict resolution, what happens when we don't all get along, human resource essentials, what I wish I knew about HR when I first became a leader or a manager, improving outcomes, essential evaluation and quality improvement tools, financial accountability, and finally, strategic thinking applied to day-to-day work and decision-making. How can I support our strategic plan? So we end with this, and all of these tools, as Carrie will talk a little bit later on, we'll touch on that. The first question, I'll post it now. What are things that must be considered as an organization develops its strategic plan? So again, we're going to start really broad so we have an understanding of strategy and a strategic plan, the needs of staff, client needs, mission and vision, absolutely, the stakeholders, community needs, future goals, measurable timelines. Yeah, very good. Internal and external environment. What's the why? Excellent. Yeah, mission and vision. What's the major reason? Is it achievable? Good. Ensuring voice of community is heard. Yeah. Where are we heading? That's right. That's the entire point. The goals. Okay, excellent. All right, I'll ask you to minimize your poll. I'll escape out of that and then just come back to Zoom or the slides and we'll continue moving forward. So lots of what you shared is about strategic planning. One of the things that we like to talk about is that strategic planning is about moving away from always just looking at the trees to looking at the forest, because sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. And often when we are caught in our day-to-day work, it's hard to keep sight of where we're going collectively. What is the big picture that we mean when we try to think about strategic planning? And so we talk about the benefits of strategic planning as the promotion of strategic thought and action. So it hopefully in a good strategic plan, all staff are involved and leaders are involved, clients are involved, as you've named. So it allows us to lead in a more, gather information in a more systematic way to understand what's happening internally within an organization, but also what is the external context of what's happening. It heightens attention to organizational learning, and that's why the involvement of staff is so important, so that together we can think about ideas and what needs to move forward, what the priorities are, clarification of the organization's future direction, and establishing priorities, because you can't do everything. So what is it that you're going to do as you move forward? Hopefully it leads to really good improved decision-making. So it focuses attention to the crucial issues and challenges facing the organization. So particularly now, as you're coming, hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic, and we think about all that we've experienced, what is it that we really need to focus our attention on? It enhances an organization's ability to respond, and it's meant to improve performance. And it is about re-engaging an organization's people. So when done well, all of these elements are part of strategy. And so in essence, we get this beautiful view of how your organization fits into this beautiful forest. What's the path that you need to be forging that is connected to your partners, your community, the people that you serve, the internal and external context? And so as a leader, part of your work, even if you are doing, supporting people that are working directly with clients, whatever your role is, or you're in HR or in risk, whatever it is, at some level as a leader, you need to have the bigger picture in mind. You have to have an understanding of where it is all going. And that allows you to make sense of the work that you're doing, and it allows you to have the opportunity to prioritize your own work. So this is the image that we really need for you to have in your mind as we think about strategy. So let's talk a little bit about context, because to get to here, we also know that there's just a whole lot of stuff that's happening. So part of what we have learned in our work around strategic planning is that it's no longer linear. That and most thinkers, I would say, that are in strategy would say that that's just true. That it's no longer A plus B equals C, and it's just a linear process. But we really need to move to sense making and reflective practice. We need to be able to sit with the information and ask ourselves, what does this mean at this moment in our story? And so we're hearing this from different perspectives. And this is a good quote from Governance as Leadership. We need time for generative dialogue. It is precisely because sense making is so subjective and involves so many choices that it's so powerful and ultimately so necessary for governing and leading. Asking, what do you notice? Trying to make sense of all kinds of information, of the messes and the messiness. So, this is true in our world. There's so many different perspectives and ways of looking at things. Data can be done, can do almost anything with data to make your point. It's not so much that we don't have information, it's that we have too much information. And sometimes the information that we have isn't necessarily telling us what we need to do next. So much of strategy, and this again is part of what we hope you will take away from today, is that opportunity to say, as a leader, I need to step back. I need to look at the whole. I need to really think about what is most important related to mission and vision in terms of where I need to go. So part of it is slowing down, pausing, and listening, changing our thinking, reflecting with an open mind, rapidly trying to think of what might happen, providing feedback, and then acting. So acting comes at the end of all of our actions. And at the same time, we know that it's iterative and it moves as we move along. So we would love change to happen this way, where it's, you start, if you think of plants, and it's a very simple, and that this isn't the way that nature works, but we hope that it would be this very specific piece of it. But it is much more complex than that, isn't it? We wish for this, but we know it looks a lot more like this. That even in our work, there are a lot of avenues, and there's a lot of thoughts, there's a lot of meandering, there's a lot of opportunities that come before us. All of this is also part of strategy. It's that beautiful forest of understanding amidst this beautiful world that is unfolding before us. What is the best work that I can be doing, that our organization can be doing? So of course, we do want to get it into something that's a little bit easier to comprehend. So we talk about strategy as co-creating our future. And we believe that good strategic planning processes involve having a 360 view of the organization, so that you can really map where it is that you believe the organization and then your work needs to go. And so we talk about it from this perspective. So we talk about a discovery time where we get stakeholder feedback, we do an environmental scan, we do an internal data analysis. So we really focus on data gathering from these different perspectives. And then we talk about coming together in a synthesis, in some kind of a report. We call it the discovery report. And then the summit is an opportunity for rich dialogue, to really think about what is it that we need to be doing together. It often includes leaders and staff. And what you do is you emerge with some terms of strategy that you think are the most important points. And then the board or the leaders develop the strategy, the actual strategic directions, and you move to then developing a comprehensive, actionable strategic plan, and then moving to recommendations for how you implement. So that is a good strategic planning journey. And again, as leaders, just helpful for you to know, how did the board get to these strategic directions? A good process, or one that one day you might be leading or you're leading now, may include all of these different components when appropriate. So we talk about strategy as the sweet spot between the current environment, and you can probably think of lots of things that are happening in the environment that are impacting us. For example, you might think, of course, of the pandemic, or the impact of the pandemic related to, for example, mental health and addiction, or the crisis with respect to opioids. Or you might think in terms of the opportunities it's lent us around technology. Or you can also think in terms of the environment of the many transformations that many of your organizations are experiencing, such as the health transformation or employment transformation, justice transformation, the transformation that's happening in disability services. All of that is the environment, and you as a leader need to take all of that into account. Then there's the internal piece, and the internal piece might include things like, how are we doing with respect to attracting the right talent in terms of our staff? Are we retaining people? What is our quality information telling us about how we're providing services? Do we have any infrastructure needs that we really need to be thinking about? All of that encompasses the internal. And then finally, really important, and one that you named very clearly in the poll, is hearing from stakeholders. So what are our clients saying? What are the community members telling us? What are our partners telling us? Staff, leaders, the board, all of that are your stakeholders. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of data. And that's why we talk about syncing and sitting with it and understanding the messiness. But in the end, coming to understand that it's the sweet spot there. The strategy really is about anchoring on what is best. So practice in sense making is taking a look at the organization from a variety of angles and understanding what is best and not just what is good. And that is a critical aspect of this work, is really coming to understand of the resources that we have, the people that we serve, from what we're hearing in this current time in history. What is the best that we can do with the resources that we have? And this type of a mindset might help you if you are getting new funding, if you have funder dollars that have been provided at the end of a year, for example. What's the best that we can do with the talents and the resources in our current reality? So let me ask a very quick poll question. So I'll put the poll back up if that's helpful. You can just go back to it just to get your sense of it. So the next question is, of the three areas, which are the ones that you think we often pay little attention to when setting an organization strategy? And this one, you can just click on it. Oh, maybe not. There we go. Oh, no, you actually vote. Thank you. I forgot this is a fun one. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think we often forget about the environment, what's happening outside. And, as we do more systems work, we really need to have a mindset for even what other organizations are doing. So we have a sense of how we relate to them. Hearing from others is really important, and stakeholders. Okay. I think there might be another question here. So thinking about that whole journey, what is striking you about doing strategic planning this way? Just jumping out for you. Looking at it from all those angles, taking time to think. Thank you, Bob. I see that. Yeah. It's thorough. It's finding the sweet spot. Get buy-in when you include community and stakeholders. Absolutely. And we always think, the involvement of staff in whatever you're developing as a plan is really valuable because they have a different perspective that they need to bring to the table. But also often strategy goes back to be implemented by staff. And so the more that they're a part of it, the more engaged they will be at the implementation part. Follow through, incorporates the right people at the best time. It's intensive, absolutely. And so it's not always necessarily needed to do it, but every once in a while, it's important to do a really intense perspective, connects all the pieces. It's process driven. Yeah, it's process and takes time. It absolutely does. More involvement from outside sources. Opportunity to say, I need to step back. Yes. Balanced perspective. Yeah. So you can imagine that when we do these strategic plans, so I will ask you to come back to Zoom. When we do these strategic plans, you're still seeing my screen, I'm hoping. They are really comprehensive, and our discovery report sometimes is 100 pages, right? It's a lot of information. And this is why we need to sit with the information. And it's also why data collection is so important, is because what we sometimes do in the absence of data is that we just get opinions, right? So my perspective, and if I happen to be louder, more persuasive, or have more authority or influence or power, as we've talked before, my voice may count more. And in gathering data and using that as the basis of it, all of our voices count collectively. At least initially, as we gather the insights. So I want us to just spend a bit of time thinking about that strategic mindset. How do we take all of that and put it together in wherever you are in the organization? When you're being asked to develop a strategic plan within the strategic plan, or when you're wanting to have your team really think about where you need to go strategically to support the organization. And what I really want to focus on here is this reflective practice approach. And I love this image, and not that we can go to the tree all the time in real life, but certainly we can try to get our mind there to sit with the wisdom and with the data. So that idea of stepping back. So as part of analysis, we need to ask ourselves, what are we learning here? And it's about pausing and sitting with it. And even when a strategic mindset is about, and a discernment through a reflective practice, even when you're trying to make a decision that is going to be significant, I encourage you to pause and to sit with it. And of course, we can do pros and cons and matrices, and those are all really essential, as we've talked before. But at some point, it's not as easy as just the score. You need to kind of sit back. So it's moving it to an intuition, to your gut, and to let it sink. And so we tend to be cerebral. We tend to think that maybe, not all of us, but some people tend to think that maybe the gut or the feeling don't necessarily inform the same way, but they really do. So moving to intuition, to letting it sink, to discerning, which is rational and intuition versus just options, is really valuable. Sometimes after all of the analysis, just to say, you know what, let's just sit in silence and see what else is coming to us after our rich dialogue that we might want to offer and bring to the table. It allows us opportunity to explore and understand, to be informed by generative dialogue, and then to be able to integrate all of that information as the plan moves forward. So often, even when we get it down to a very pithy one-pager strategic plan that has vision, mission, and the strategic directions, the level of reflection that our team has done and that we've done with leaders or board and staff is quite significant just to get it to that, so that then it can be rolled out, because it gives us almost a cross-check for the analysis to say, yes, as we look back, these are the most important things that we need to be focusing on, coming at it from a data-driven perspective. So how to think bigger, expand your thinking beyond your team and your work. So again, the spheres there is a good image for you to remember. What do I need to gather from our environment? What do I need to gather internally? What do I need to gather in terms of the stakeholders? Move from defending and protecting to seeing the goal of the whole organization or the community. And this sometimes happens to us. We believe, okay, I'm coming in to protect my program. I need these resources. But this is about collectively as a group thinking strategically and being able to say, okay, I need to put that aside and think about the whole. Prioritize mission in your organization and your team, and then your work. So the order is the mission of the organization. That's number one. Then your organization within that, then your team, and then your work. And so as a leader, I have to keep that all in my head so that I can be serving the people that we're meant to serve in the best way possible. So again, think of the lenses of environment, stakeholders, and internal. So hopefully that gives you a overview at a high level of how a strategic plan is developed, and then how it is that you can develop a mindset, whether it's directly tied to your strategic plan or the work that you're being invited to do at a team level. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Thanks very much, Maria. So the slide that we have here has some of the ideas that Maria had on her last slide, a little bit more of a visual. So on the right-hand side, if you think of what's on the right-hand side is your strategic plan, or in this instance, it's sort of a forest management plan. What do we want the forest to look like? So what do we want the future of our organization and those that we serve in our community to look like? And as a leader, keeping that in mind as you're doing your work is critically important. But also on the other side of the screen, you see the work that you do every day and the work that you do with your team, which is planting and nurturing each of the individual trees that are going to contribute to that forest management plan. So putting them in the right place, making sure they're the right type of tree, according to the plan for your section of the forest. And you need to be in that position to be able to, really sort of look at each individual tree, as well as step back and remember the plan and sort of say, yes, what I'm doing makes sense with the plan. The work that we're doing aligns to what we want to do to move it forward. So, and you can support your team with that as well, is understanding how each piece of work that is done fits into the larger plan. And the question really is, how do you do that? So if we can move to the next slide. So one of the things that you can do to do that, and as important or even more importantly, support your whole team in being able to do that, is, on the right-hand side, we've got the map, which is your strategic plan, and then you've got a picture of your destination. So helping your team think about and talk about the destination, how exciting it will be, what will it actually look like, what will be different, as well as letting them see the map to say, and this is how we're working forward to get there. So the team needs to understand why the destination is important, and also understand how their work supports in that movement towards the destination, how everybody is coming together to help get to the place that you're trying to go together as an organization. And again, how do you do that? So let's go even a little bit more specifically. So we have here a picture of a marina. So another way of looking at it is each of the docks in this marina might be one pillar of your strategic plan. And there is so much work that each individual needs to do to sort of line up and get moving in that direction. And it's really the strategic plan that supports you in doing that. Each of these boat owners has some understanding of the plan, where they're supposed to go, where they line up, which pillar they line up with, or which dock. And can you just imagine if they didn't? If people just sort of came whipping into the marina, stopped, got off their boat, didn't sort of pull it in where it was supposed to be, or just parked in the middle and sat there and drank a beverage and had some lunch and chilled out and watched the sun go by. You know, that's not how marinas work. That's not how moving an organization forward works. So make the strategic plan a regular part of your conversation. So whatever language you've used to capture your strategic directions, use that language when you're talking about different projects, talking about different programs, and frame those within the context of the strategic objectives. So again, you'll have these large strategic objectives, and then you should have, as Maria talked about, a 3 or a 5 year plan that shows year by year the work that you're going to do to get to those strategic objectives. So frame your projects in, you know, this aligns with the work that we're doing here. Another thing that you can do that's sort of very, very tangible and supports people is explicitly align agendas. So team meeting agendas, whatever kinds of meeting you're having within your organization, is align those agendas with the strategic objectives. So we'll go to the next slide. And you'll see an example here of the Canadian Mental Health Association Halton Region branch. Has allowed us to use their strategic plan for 2020 to have a look at it. So it looks a little bit different than some others that you might see. You see their vision, mission, and values. They have 3 strategic directions, and then across the bottom, you can see where they've cross-referenced those 3 strategic directions with the 3 areas that they think are critical to work in, and have really come up with 9 objectives as a result of that. So an example of an agenda that you might have for a program or for a team, one of the items is you're introducing a new partnership in hopes of supporting better flow of referrals between organizations, warm handoffs, whatever work that you're doing in that area. And you would probably align that with your access and capacity stream and with your collaboration and integration. So all doors lead to the right path, play an integral role as part of the broader health system. That shows exactly how that project that you're doing aligns with the strategic plan. The next thing you might be doing on your agenda is reviewing an evaluation of a new program that was started 6 months ago. So you've got some results and you want to share and review. And that probably aligns under your quality objective. And then sort of looking at the way that they've done this with that cross-reference to health equity. So quality and health equity talks about evidence-informed, person-centered care. And that's exactly where an evaluation of a program would lie. So we're going to ask you to try with a couple of these, see if you can think about in this particular strategic plan, where might debriefing a critical incident lie? And Maria's going to go to the polls, and I think you should be able to see the strategic plan a little bit bigger, perhaps when you get into the polls. So if you're, and this is where you could just click and put your dot on the screen, where do you think debriefing a critical incident would lie? So we've got a couple of votes on evidence-informed person-centered care. A few more coming in: a safe and supportive culture where staff and volunteers can thrive and achieve excellence. Capacity, ensure resources and supports are in place to empower a high-performing team. We've got one under collaboration and integration, and then a few more around continuously engage and collaborate with our clients, families, partners. Absolutely, I can see where it would align with any of these, and in some respects it depends on what you do when you're debriefing a critical incident. When I think about debriefing a critical incident, I do go to that safe and supportive culture where staff and volunteers can thrive. Hopefully, when you're debriefing a critical incident, you're doing it in such a way that it is about learning what happened, what systems might we need to change, what processes might we need to change in order to support this not happening again. But again, certainly I can see where it could align with any of those that you've indicated. So thanks very much. And we're going to do it one more time with a second agenda item, or sorry, a fourth agenda item. So there should be agenda item 4 should be a poll there. Okay, we can use this one again. So this time we're going to talk about a round table. So if you have a round table at your team meeting, at whatever point in the team meeting you have it, where do you think that would align as far as what strategic direction here it would support? If you're going around asking everybody to share anything they think they need to share with the rest of the team. So we've got our people and culture, and I agree. I think it belongs on there. It could as well continuously engaging, perhaps playing an integral role as part of the broader health system, perhaps depending on what the topics of the roundtable generally are. It might depend a bit on your department and what types of things you generally have on at a roundtable. But a welcoming environment for staff and community members, I think absolutely inviting people to input into the team meeting really supports that welcoming environment, a safe and supportive culture again, and ensuring resources and supports are in place. So your roundtable may be about people sharing something that has worked or something that hasn't worked as well, things we might want to do differently, where we might need to think about placing resources differently. So absolutely, you could really frame that depending on how you do your meetings in your organization. You could absolutely frame that one, the roundtable, in that way. So thanks very much, Maria. We'll move back to the slides, and a reminder to just click on your Zoom. So supporting your team and coming together and doing strategic thinking strategically as they go about their work. These are two different models, and one or both of these likely were used at some point during your strategic planning process. So they do support the big picture. They do support that look at the organization. What strengths do we have to build on? Where development might be needed, where new opportunities and challenges are coming together. So one of them is called SOAR. And as you can see, that's looking at strengths and opportunities. So in the present, what are the strengths of your organization? And in the present, what are some of the opportunities that your organization might be wanting to take advantage of? And then aspirations and results. So that's looking a little bit more into the future. Aspirations, what do we want to see for, again, if you're using with your team, what do we want to see for our team? What do we want to see for the program? And again, how does it align in with our strategic objectives and also results? If our strategic objective is related to doing something differently in the community, or reducing the incidence of something in particular, what do we aspire to in supporting that, and what results do we need to keep our eyes on to know that we're moving in the right direction to make that happen? The other analysis that is sometimes done, you don't often do both, but one or the other is often done in the process, is a SWOT. So you're looking at strengths and weaknesses on the left-hand side, and that's looking internally. So the first time that your team sits down to see the finalized strategic directions and objectives and talk about what is it that our team is going to do to support these, you might talk about, okay, what are the strengths of our team related to the items on the strategic directions? What are the weaknesses or areas for development of our team? Oh, it looks like we have a strategic direction about partnerships, and maybe we haven't spent time together learning enough about our partners, and maybe there's some work we want to do about that together as a team. And then on the right-hand side, you're looking externally, looking at the opportunities and looking at the threats. So what is happening externally that we might want to get a hold of, and it will really support us in moving things directive. Again, a particular partner that you've got a good relationship with, wow, we could really deepen that relationship to support our strategic goals. And external threats. So what's out there in the environment that might actually cause you not to be able to do the things that you want to do? Being aware of them in advance, maybe doing some planning for what if. So maybe you know that one of your partners is in a unionized environment, and the contract is coming up and things aren't looking good as far as the potential for a strike in the future. okay, this could be a threat to us being able to do what we need to do for our clients. So can we do a little bit of thinking in advance as to what we might need to do to be prepared for that? So just as it's done for an entire organization, you can absolutely do this work with your team. And again, align it to the strategic plan. And we'll move to the next slide. So as Maria mentioned, we were very intentional about doing this strategic thinking and bringing strategy into your day-to-day world as the last piece that we wanted to do in this webinar series, because there are a number of tools and models and tips that we've talked about. Those of you who are in the certificate program have had the opportunity to try a lot of these out in your reflection submission. And hopefully those of you who aren't in the certificate program have also found opportunities to think more about these different models and ideas and implement them into the work that you do. When we go back to how we're going to utilize each of these tools moving forward, layer those strategic lenses that Maria talked about into them. So when you're looking at being a relational leader, are you looking internally as well as externally? Are you thinking of all of your different stakeholders? Down below that, when we talk about SCARF, and how does strategy relate to conflict? So if your organization has a strategy that moves in a particular direction, might it be threatening to some of your team members for a particular reason, autonomy, relatedness, fairness, or some of the partners that you work with, or potentially even clients? So that's a tool as you're thinking about your strategic objectives, how you're supporting moving them forward as a team. Where are there places where you may find they're going to be challenging for people? Think about that in advance and be able to respond to that. In the middle bottom, again, how are you going to evaluate and what are you going to evaluate? Well, your strategic plan should give you a bit of direction, maybe thinking about aligning it with your why. Let me, spend a little bit more time as you did before with a nice cup of tea, sitting in a cozy part of your house, thinking about your why and, all of the things that your organization is doing in their strategic plan. How do those align? And again, your communications, as we talked about, you need to constantly be thinking about repeating the message of your strategic plan in your communications as you move forward. So I am going to hand it back to Maria to finish us off today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Carrie. So the webinar series really aims to give you as new and emerging leaders, and I know that there's some really seasoned leaders with us as well, some more tools in your toolkit, as Carrie just talked about. So if we look at other spheres, in terms of a shift in the way a leader moves forward, there's kind of three things to think about. It's your mindset. So what we covered there was your why and your organization's why, which is often mission, vision, and strategic planning, plus being a leader and a manager and what that means and the differences that means when you take on the position of leadership, a mindset of evaluation, and then your strategic mindset. So we hope that it has given you some tools or some ability to have a different mindset for how you lead. Also important is knowledge. What knowledge do I bring? So in addition to that, we know that there's just so much to say about HR, but we hope that some of what we shared was helpful to you, as well as some of what we shared about understanding your financial resources. And again, if what we've done through the series is giving you opportunity to say, gosh, that's something I really need to pay close attention to, something more I need to learn, we hope that that's been helpful for you. And then finally, skills. So the skills of supporting change through influence. You remember that good conversation and webinar that we had about the role of influence and what your role is, and yet the balance of that authority with that. the skills around communication and communication planning. And we hope that the template that we provided gives you an opportunity to then go back and say, when I need to communicate something, here's some of the things I need to keep in mind. Certainly the financial template as well, hopefully gives you an opportunity to have something to use as you move forward. And then the conflict resolution, having, again, some tools in your back pocket for how to handle conflict when it comes, because we all know that it will. Ultimately, it's all here for the people that you serve and for giving you the skills that you need to move forward. So we hope that it's tied it together for you, finishing with strategy and giving you some good tools for you to have in your toolkit as a leader. So we'd love to know what this was like for you. So we're going to just take a few moments, if you don't mind. I'll just put the link again in the webinar and just have you answer some very brief questions that help us with our planning as we continue to move forward. So the first question, sorry, I'll go back to this one. Can you tell us how beneficial was the webinar series to you? So not at all, somewhat beneficial, or very beneficial. What was it like for you? I wonder if I activated this one. Oh, how about I activate it so we can do it? There we go. How beneficial was the webinar series for you? Are people able to, I wonder, did I turn it off? Oh my goodness. Okay, let's try again. There, sorry about that. I think it should be okay now. Can you try again, please? Put the pull back in. Thank you. Is it still locked? Yes. Oh, 1 sec. Let's see what's going on. We've done so well with these. Can you try there again?
Maria, there's a little lock on the bottom middle of the screen that you may need to click
Oh,
on.
there we go. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's try again. Thanks, everyone. Put the link there again. Okay, helpful. Thank you so much. And we'll go to the next question, just again, giving us feedback so we can learn. What are the top 3 things that you've learned from the series? Think of, these are the 3 things that I'll remember learning here. What might they be? Leadership, stool, skills. About my leadership, well, it's style, again, style. Reflecting on my why, starting with why. Budget terminology, HR strategies, the why. How to engage more. Conflict resolution, leadership styles and when to apply them. Everything in leadership is situational. How you can be experienced but still learn new things. Details regarding leadership style, why, and conflict resolution. Communication is key. Where I need to work on regarding leadership style. Everyone learns differently and you need to lead accordingly. Keeping strategic goal as a priority. Yeah. Remembering the why and leadership styles. Thank you. It's okay to take time to pause and reflect. Yes. It really is. Thank you. Just a few more questions. What can we improve? So what would you say? Oh, I wish, is there a topic or something or style, the way we did it? What can we improve? Clear instructions for homework. Thank you. More practical examples. Okay. Yeah, interaction with other leaders. Okay. Time for dialogue among attendees. Okay. Assignments returned quickly. Okay, deeper dive at times it felt too surface. Thank you. Self-care for leaders. Separate current leaders and those who aren't yet in those roles. Guest speakers. Some of the topics seemed way above what I do as an emerging leader. They'd be way above my pay grade in larger agency, may be helpful to someone doing their own business. Okay, thank you. Very helpful. An idea on amount of time to put into assignments. Okay. Okay, the sessions were very spaced out. It was hard to get back into it each month. Maybe consider a weekly or bi-weekly sessions. Oh, so helpful. Yeah, financial and budget knowledge needs more than 1 hour. It's hard. Yeah, thank you. More enthusiasm. I appreciated the monthly span. Okay. Sector specific info, not for profit versus profit. Okay. Very helpful. Thank you. And would you recommend the series to others? Okay. And I thank you very much. So helpful just to get a sense. So last question, as we do all the times, and again, your comments about what you learned and what you improved, very helpful for us as we continue to think about how we might move this forward. So last question, what one word to describe how you're leaving our session? Informed. Good. Confident, thankful, confident, love that. Hopeful, prepared, grateful, knowledgeable, knowledge, optimistic, excited, enlightened, evolved. Thank you. Grateful. Excellent. Contemplative. Wonderful. Okay, so as you can see, there is so much to consider around strategic planning, but here are 2 questions to help you reflect on what we have discussed in this session. First one, analyze the way that the strategic plan was developed in your organization with what you have learned about strategic plans. What did you do well as an organization? What can you do differently next time? Second, what are 2 to 3 things that you can do to develop a strategic mindset and align your work and the work of your team with your organization's strategic plan? And finally, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us on this leadership journey. We hope each session offered meaningful insights, practical tools, and moments of reflection to support your growth as a leader. May your leadership continue to be grounded in clarity, compassion, and courage. From all of us here at the Center for Organizational Effectiveness, thank you for being with us and take good care.